Hey there, guys. Alright, today we are back with some more overly sarcastic productions. This time, I don't know how this really fits for Valentine's Day, but you know what? We'll go with it. Henry VIII, Lady Killer, History Hijinks. Now I don't know if I'll be uploading this on Valentine's Day. If I do, then it might end up causing a shift in the upload schedule and the typical how date in what videos get uploaded, right? So like usually it's Great War, OSP, and then Geography Now, extra credits, Great War, OSP, History Matters, extra credits, right? That's the typical 8-day slot that I do here. Unless, you know, oversimplified or Salmonella upload a video. That's the 8-day slot we do here. So I might move things around just to upload this on Valentine's Day. We'll see. It depends on how my back catalog of videos I've already recorded by the time I'm recording this goes. I like to record a bunch of videos ahead of time. That way I can get a stockpile and then take, you know, a weekend off now and then from YouTube, that I can relax and breathe and sleep in the mornings. I gotta record these. I record these in the morning. Anyways, I'm rambling about things that probably no one cares about. Another thing that I want to talk about here at the beginning. I am considering starting a Patreon. However, I'm not entirely certain what it should be. I don't like the idea of it just being these videos but uploaded like a day early or 2 days early over on Patreon. That doesn't interest me. That doesn't seem like even something that's worth paying for because I upload daily, you know? If I were like oversimplified and I upload once every 6 months or some shit, and to get the next video like a little bit early, yeah, sure, that Patreon makes sense, right? If you're a huge fan of Oversimplified. I'm not so much anymore, but anyway, that's a tangent for another day. Man, I'm just rambling. I'm considering starting a Patreon. I think it will be writing focused. It would be focused around the world I've built and writing the books in said world that I've created. Like, you know, and I'm thinking it would be, I'd probably only have one Patreon tier, like $5 a month, same cost of a Twitch subscription. And there, it wouldn't be daily uploads. I don't think it'd be really anything all too special, hence why it'd only be $5 a month. I'd, of course, you know, on the Discord, you get a special, you know, fucking rank or whatever. I'd list you, you know, I think I'd be able to do that. I don't know. I don't know if you can connect Patreon to Discord. I'd have to look into it. But yeah, you know, it would be, I'm thinking probably it would be maybe weekly uploads of something random, like maybe I share a chapter from a previous novel I've written that I'm not going to release. I have no plans on releasing in the state that it's in. So thinking about doing that. Maybe weekly map update or something. So it would be something related to the work I'm doing in terms of writing and world building and stuff like that. There won't be any like videos just for Patreon, just because I don't know, I don't really find the reactions all that fun. I'd rather just write. If I could just, like, honestly, if I were to be able to be an author and make that my living, I probably won't be uploading here anymore. We'll see if that, you know, if I stay true to that statement, but yeah. Man, this is just me rambling here at the beginning of a Valentine's Day video. Anyone else lonely on Valentine's Day here? We can be lonely together while we watch Henry VIII execute, what, 3 of his wives? Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I'd love if you join the Discord and follow me over at Twitch. Make sure to leave a comment talking about maybe something about the Patreon if that is something you would be interested in supporting, because also that would help me as well in finding agents for my work. You know, that would give me another statistic to show them of people interested in my content if I were to have an amount of patrons on Patreon, you know. Anyways, video.
When presenting history in a public setting, there's a delicate line between putting famous figures on blast for the irresponsible, immoral, or just downright memeable, and falling into the trap of rewarding bad behavior with attention. In this regard, researching a notorious king becomes much like watching over a toddler. No hitting. Hands to yourself, please. Do not put that in your mouth. Negotiating for basic manners with a baby is hopeless, and so is expecting any better from a monarch, because they're both playing by a completely different rule set, and you can see it in their eyes that they know it too. And this is why I spend so few videos recounting the lives of big boy kings and their Tonka truck wars. It's just exhausting, and I always feel like I'm rewarding that bad behavior. But today, in the spirit of the Valentine's season, I'm going to talk about love. Or rather, whatever the hell Henry VIII was doing. There is some overlap, but boy is it slight. So, to learn the story of England's most notorious lady killer as an object lesson in what never to do, let's do some history. We begin in England in the 1500s as young Prince Hal was an extremely captivating figure, admired in his day for his athleticism, charm, and good looks. Sure, he's at once better and worse than we're liable to give him credit for.
Yeah, it's so interesting, like, the standard of beauty, and, you know, I'd love to go in a time machine and see, you know, everyone's like, I want to see these historical events. Me with a time machine, it's like, I want to go and compare their portraits to their real life selves. Like, is this an accurate depiction of said person? You know?
A multilingual and multi-talented king, he was an artistic patron and participant in the Renaissance tradition.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing. Henry VIII was an actually cool dude, somewhat, you know, before going off the deep end because he didn't have a son.
He was also full of a royally insatiable appetite for food and women alike. Those traits were only matched by his impulsiveness, arrogance, and self-obsession.
Oh, and maybe he wasn't so good.
He got bored easily and was as distrustful as he was covetous. Henry's paranoia led to the death of queens, officials, religious dissenters, and nearly every advisor who ever served him. Yet, for the first 2 decades of his reign, he was popular in his court and among the subjects, in large part because he played the royal jock while his father's advisors and one notoriously corrupt Cardinal Wolsey ran the kingdom. But even early on, he couldn't leave.
Take hold of thine stockings and watch ye this.
Well enough alone.
Huzzah.
Bored of being merely a celebrity, Henry wanted to get the blood rushing by winning glory. So, as ever, the clearest option was in France.
It's the only way to do it. He's an Englishman, of course.
Yet, as ever, it did not work, costing the entire treasury in one go and only proving that poor tiny England absolutely could not compete with the great powers of Europe. So,
I mean, didn't he actually do pretty good in the war?
So, with great frustration, he turned his focus back to England. And this would prove especially bad news for his wife, Catherine of Aragon, as it's here where Henry's reign surpasses the generically inept and descends into the true hallmark of his career, religion-shattering horniness. Now, before we progress, it is my historian's responsibility to remind you that people are complicated and memes are not. So we're on the receiving end of a 500-year gossip circle that we ourselves perpetuate every time we laugh at old King Sixwives instead of thinking through what the history meant for the actual human people who lived it. Henry certainly belongs in horny jail, but we can't pat ourselves on the back if we reduce an extremely consequential chapter of English history to the joke answer. So let's consider, what did Henry want? In a word, a son. Henry grew up in the wake of the War of the Roses and was acutely aware of how catastrophic the line of succession would get without a clear male heir. His Tudor dynasty was new and it was not guaranteed to stay in power. Henry was married to the stately Queen Catherine of Aragon, but after 2 decades of marriage, no son. Lots of infant mortality and one daughter Mary who survived to adulthood, but Henry figured that—
You know, it's also amazing Catherine survived all those failed pregnancies too. Like, goddamn woman. Strong.
That wouldn't cut it in a fiercely patriarchal society like medieval Europe. Catherine had been a good queen and a good wife, but once she was past childbearing years, Henry had no use for her. He had plenty of mistresses, but illegitimate sons would do him no good either. What he needed was a brand new wife. And people had done this before. Divorce, per se, was not recognized.
Both of Henry's sisters had their marriages annulled. Mary Tudor was betrothed to Emperor Charles V, but the Pope broke the contract. Margaret Tudor divorced in 1527 and remarried later that year.
By the church, but you could get an annulment where the Pope says, oh, that marriage? Yeah, that never happened. You've actually been single the whole time. In fact, Catherine was first married to Henry's brother, but after he died, the marriage was annulled so she could marry Henry. But this time, the Pope was unmovable. Diplomacy, bargaining, saying pretty please, Rome would not budge.
Was Rome close to Spain at this time? Or, like, was the Pope Spanish? Or was the Pope, like, family members Spanish? You know, because that's the thing that you got to think about here. Because, you know, he broke the contract with the Holy Roman Emperor. The Pope was willing to do that, but then not do it for Spain. Which, I mean, Spain at this time, though, was really wealthy, and the Holy Roman Empire was had been on the decline for a while.
In Europe, Henry was powerless. But in England, he was the one in charge. In 1532, a decade and a half after Martin Luther woke up and chose mayhem, Henry broke with Rome and declared that the church in England was answerable only to the king. Some of Henry's advisors objected, so naturally Henry had them killed, and some Catholics in the north rebelled, so naturally Henry had them crushed as well. Everyone else carried on with their day for fear of the...
Good golly, we sure do love being loyal to the supreme authority of the Church of England and His Highness the King. Big fans.
Harsh new anti-treason laws. And with that, Henry had his church, his annulment, and his new wife, Anne Boleyn. She had been a court lady to Catherine, and when Henry started making kissy faces at her, she refused to be a mistress and insisted he marry her properly before any slamming was to begin. Honestly, well played. A few
fucking respect. Damn, she could have fucked the king, but she's like, no. Ring, please, and then fuck.
Very short months after their marriage, Anne gave birth to the future Queen Elizabeth, but that was it.
No, son.
Uh-oh. In the midst of all that, Henry was struggling to reconfigure his monarchy now that he was the head of the Church of England. He became responsible for giving alms to the poor and happily...
Henry confiscated his way into owning 15% of English land, but later had to sell it all away to the nobility because he blew the treasury on another war. Hashtag just king things.
He confiscated all of the old church lands. However, he had neither the time nor patience for another sonless wife. Blissfully unaware of how chromosomal genetics actually works, he concluded that this marriage was also cursed and had her annulled, and executed for adultery and treason. Zoinks. This kind of frivolous cruelty also undermines the entire hoist of doing Protestantism in the first place, which frankly is
we both know Henry has killed far more for far less. Why hide?
Typical Henry. Henry's subsequent betrothal to Jane Seymour the next day would finally net him the son he always wanted. Never mind what Edward VI was like as king, because he'd be succeeded 7 years later by Mary and Elizabeth anyway, so this whole exhausting ordeal is the result of one man's paranoia, lust, and enthusiasm for beheadings. But with the mission finally complete, do you know what happens to Jane Seymour? She died of an infection 2 weeks later. I don't know whether to be sad for her awful luck or relieved that she did.
Rip Jane Seymour, you gave Henry the male heir he always wanted, and then courteously spared Henry the cost of the annulment papers and the executioner's hourly fee. His Highness the King is most grateful for your supreme efficiency.
Didn't live to see what it's like when Henry got a whiff of someone else's perfume. But with his beloved bloodline preserved, Henry turned back to foreign policy and failed just as badly as he did when he was a teenager. He wanted a German Protestant wife as a check against Emperor Charles V and chose Anne of Cleves in 1540, a mail-order bride he picked from a portrait gallery. But Henry McSleepsaround suddenly got all choosy and annulled the marriage the same year because Anne didn't look enough like her portrait. Rude. That said, this ended a lot better than it very easily could have, so
Anne spent the next 17 years living up in 2 palaces with all the privileges of a royal family member, but with absolutely none of the responsibilities or implicit marital dangers associated with being queen. Anne of Cleves was a full-on boss. Good for her. Good for her.
So let's take the win and move on. He next married Catherine Howard. There was a religious strategy to this. I don't care. And he eventually had her executed for adultery as well. Restraint? In this kingdom? Speaking of, he started some wars again. Didn't super work, plus the treasury was back to empty. Ah well, let's meet the last wife. Catherine Parr was a Protestant widow who served as regent while Henry was at war in France and made a point to formalize Mary and Elizabeth's places in the royal succession, thus making Catherine Parr the actual MVP of the Tudor dynasty.
Nice.
In any case, it was good timing because 4 years later, Henry died, leaving our last Catherine to live her best life.
Nice.
Oh, what a mess. A king with his priorities so twisted in knots he wasn't sure whom he wanted to marry or kill, so he did everything to everyone and called it a day. Henry's 38 years on the throne were some of England's most consequential due to his sweeping reforms of church and state, but all that sprang from the remarkable women whom he called queen. These 6 stick in our minds because of Henry's distinct notoriety, but any prominence he has in English history is owed quite thoroughly to the captivating effect they had on him, and in turn, on us. And so we've come full circle to our starting comparison. Like monarch, like toddler, they want their mommy. Thank you for watching.
I like that. I like that one a lot. So that was Henry VIII, Lady Killer, History, Hijinks. I've got nothing to add here at the end. I hope you guys enjoyed. I certainly did. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.